Welcome back. All right, so some news of the day for all you fine people on the internet. And a number of teams in the news today, starting with Chicago. So Chicago's removed the interim tag for general manager Kyle Davidson. So they have this big, long search, and it kind of turned out where rumors had always had it ending up. Where he had taken over in October when Stan Bowman resigned, and that was seen as a chance for him to earn the job full time. And that is essentially what's taken place. So the GM search is done in Chicago. Davidson's the new general manager. And so we'll see how he does in that job. And Jonathan Toews out of protocol. Concussion protocol may return on Thursday. Calvin DeHaan may play on Thursday as well for the Chicago Blackhawks. So for Kyle Davidson now, of course, you've got less than 3 weeks until the trade deadline. It's going to be interesting to watch what Chicago does, who they hold on to, who they don't, and what the plan is going forward. Because Jonathan Toews has been clear he's not interested in a rebuild. So we'll see how things go for for Chicago. Know who I'm talking about? I don't even have Colorado in the news today. Edmonton news. Nugent Hopkins week to week with an upper body injury makes a huge difference without Nugent Hopkins in the lineup. He does a little bit everything. He can play center. He can play on the wing. He can play on the top line. He can play on the third line. He does everything for them. So not having him in the lineup absolutely hurts. Duncan Keith is set to return tonight, however, against Philadelphia. So that'll help the blue line. And so the Oilers in against the Flyers. They win that one. They get their playoff spot back. And we're at that time of year where that becomes more and more important. So odds are I'm going to be talking about it more and more in news videos. And likely there'll be videos as well on the standings, upcoming weeks and all that. Once we get close enough to playoff time, that every game feels really, really important. I sometimes wonder if the hockey's better towards the end of the year, or if we're just more invested emotionally in it. I think there's probably some of the latter in there. There's likely some of the former too, though. Good news for Winnipeg fans: Andrew Copp returns tonight. Copp, much like Nugent Hopkins in Edmonton, Copp's able to do a little bit of everything. Nugent Hopkins' case, he started out as a number 1 draft pick. And he evolved into the player that he is now. And Andrew Copp, he's evolved to become more important. So while Nugent Hopkins has changed his overall career along the way to becoming one of the most important two-way forwards for the Oilers, Copp has become really a top 6/top 9 guy, depending on the game. He can play on any line, and he can kind of do a little bit of everything, so it makes a big difference with him being out. As Nick Ehlers is getting closer, not close enough, of course, if you're a Jets fan, having Copp back is a huge benefit to them. Your 3 stars for the month of February. Mitch Marner is number 1. 12 games played, 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points. That's a pretty good month. Markstrom, number 2, out of Calgary, 8-0-1 with a .929 save percentage. So excellent numbers for him and for Calgary this past month. And Patrick Laine, who has absolutely found that next gear in Columbus. 10 games, 9 goals, 6 assists, 15 points. And Laine can be very streaky, yes, but when he's as hot as he's been over the last month or so, he's a joy to watch. He really, really is. And then the Rookie of the Month, Jeremy Swayman out of Boston, who went 5-1-1 with a .960 save percentage. He is playing so well. And like I said in last night's review, he just seems to be having fun. He seems to be more confident as time goes on. And it's interesting because it's not that long ago he was in the NHL, because that was the easiest move for Boston to make, right? And now he's back. Didn't seem to take it personal that he was down in the AHL for a bit, and he's playing very, very well. Now, something I want to talk about, the Yaroslav Halak issue in Vancouver. So first off, Jim Benning gave him a contract that includes a no-movement clause. So you can't move him to the AHL. You can't waive him. And if you want to trade him, he has to agree to the trade beforehand. So that handcuffs the Canucks right there. There's the talk of him getting a bonus that then gets tacked on next year and how that's kicked in and oh no kind of thing. And I know there's Canuck fans worried about the bonus next year. I don't have any concerns about that. I trust that the new head of the team, Rutherford, as well as the new general manager, Alvin, that they'll figure that out in the offseason. But Halak had problems last year in Boston. And his record ends up being 9-6-4 with a 905 save percentage. But his last 4 games in Boston were rough. His save percentage over those 4 games were 886, 821, 800, and 810. And I remember him breaking his stick after his last game wearing a Boston jersey because Jeremy Swayman was coming up. And you could see that Boston needed to win some games, so your duo became Halak and Swayman in Boston. Now, also working against him, the fact that he was 35 years old, right? So now at age 36, Vancouver has started him 10 times. He's played a total of 12 games. He's 2-6-2 with an 883 save percentage. And it's one of those things where last year Holtby came in. Holtby had a really rough year for Vancouver. A lot of that was the defense in front of him, which I think explains some of the drop in Halak's numbers too. Playing behind Boston's defense, which was really kind of stingy last year, it absolutely worked for Swayman. It worked for Rask as well. It couldn't get Halak's numbers to where you want him to be. So I always kind of looked at Halak in the way that he flipped out. I think he knew that game, that 810 save percentage in that last game, and kind of a leaky goal getting by him in that game meant that he was probably done in Boston. I think he could see the writing on the wall. And, I mean, it's merely conjecture on my part, but for the Canucks, I don't know that signing Halak is going to be a move we look back on fondly. And it's going to... I don't think it's going to bring back the goalie graveyard idea, although if they keep rotating backups, I'm sure somebody will mention it somewhere. But he's 36. If they made him available on the market right now, I don't know that there's a market for Halak. I think it's a similar situation to Hudobin in Dallas. The difference being Dallas was able to send Hudobin down to the AHL. The Canucks cannot do that with Halak. So in the event that, let's just say, they decide to call up Spencer Martin, well, now he counts against your 23-man roster, so you have to send somebody else down. And so you're leaving yourself in kind of a tough position. So I would imagine that with the numbers Halak's put up his last couple of games, which have just been a nightmare, there's likely going to be some discussion in Vancouver regarding Halak and his future. I don't think that there's necessarily an easy way out of this. And again, I wanted to be optimistic and think that he would bounce back from what was a really rough end to last year in Boston, but it didn't end well, and now in Vancouver it has not gotten better. So we'll see if things turn around. But with the compressed schedule teams are looking at from here, and the Canucks, that 2-6-2 record for Halak, if you look at where the Canucks are in the standings, 3 points back of a playoff spot, if you have a backup there who ends up being, say, 4-4-2 instead, you are closer to the playoffs. So in a really contracted season like this one, the backup goaltender could end up being really key in a lot of areas. And so for teams that have 2 very good goaltenders, I'm going to come back to Boston. I know Ullmark hasn't had a great year, but he's been good. And so the fact that there's 2 goalies there they have faith in, that's important. That's a really key thing. Carolina, they have faith in both Anderson and Ranta. Clearly, that makes a difference, having faith in both goaltenders. So we'll see how things go, but it is really complicated because you can't waive him and you can't trade him unless he agrees to it. And honestly, like I said, if the Canucks made Halak available, if he was willing to waive, I don't know who's going to come in and say, okay, well, we'll take Halak, without also wanting the Canucks to throw in a sweetener. So now you're in a position where now you're having to give up maybe a draft pick, maybe a prospect, and I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm curious to see, because last night's game against New Jersey, I don't think Vancouver beats New Jersey if Demko starts, but I don't think it would have been 7-2 either. So it is kind of a crossroads for the Canucks with Halak. I don't know that they're going to be able to solve this before the season's end, though. They have less than 3 weeks to figure it out before the trade deadline. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. And I wanted to talk about it in a news video because people keep asking and keep talking about it. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there. Good news for Penguins fans. Teddy Bluger took full contact. He is getting closer to returning. So for Bluger, him being out, I think, has shown how important he is to Pittsburgh. Huge difference defensively. Huge difference on the penalty kill. One thing with Bluger, it shows he's worth his contract. If not, maybe worth more. So hopefully Bluger's back soon. Obviously, he's my favorite member of the Penguins. I do have a Bluger jersey. So yeah, he's taking contact. He's obviously getting closer if he's at that level, and I'm sure the Penguins will be very glad to have him back. Buffalo, they have their long list of injuries. One of the recent ones that's week to week is Yoki Haru. They've got day to day for Hinostroza. Gergensons is week to week. Of course, Subban's out. Kajula's out. So yeah, it's been a long year for Buffalo since what was a pretty encouraging start. And yeah, week to week for Yoki Haru, which definitely hurts their blue line. But again, with where Buffalo is and with the season they've had, probably okay. It's probably fine. Today is an interesting day. We're going to see a lot of signings getting done. So we talk a lot about undrafted players and how undrafted players can do very well. Last night's review of the Boston-LA game, I wore an Adam Oates jersey. He was undrafted. And I wore Adam Oates because he was on Hometown Hockey and giving some good insight on players. And he is one of the more successful undrafted players in NHL history. But today is the day that undrafted players can start getting signed for next season. Now, they have to be overagers that were passed over in the draft. But this is when teams sign guys that we, as fans, may say, I'm not sure who he is. And 3 or 4 years from now, we go, wow, that was a really smart signing. So the contracts don't go into effect until next year, so you can't sign them for the rest of the season this year. But yeah, there will be some guys who get signed who might end up being very good National Hockey League players. And it is interesting because we do put a lot of stock in the draft, and we should. The draft, honestly, usually your best players are going to come out of the draft. Usually your best players are going to come out of the first round of the draft. But there are those late round picks that stand out, and there are those undrafted players that stand out as well. So keep an eye out. There will be guys getting signed. Yesterday's waiver wire, both players clear. So Florida gets their guy from Finland, and Perlini's cleared for Edmonton. So not really a huge surprise there, but let me know your thoughts regarding any of these items in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.